go. Okay, so we are here today to discuss bel canto technique. And actually, Ferdinand and I were just having a little bit of a discussion beforehand, like what are the important points that we want to address this evening. By the way, just quickly, by a show of hands, who is in Europe? Yes, okay. Well, I mean, the European continent, let's say on the time zone more. I'm wondering if it's 7:30 or 6:30 where you are, or if it's 10:30 in the morning. Let's see, we've got another person joining. Okay, great, yes. So most of us are on the similar time zone, so it's evening over here. And maybe one of us is from the States. All right. So we would like to discuss our take on bel canto technique, which actually isn't too different from what you may know about it, but it's a little bit how we both approach it from our different viewpoints. So I want to introduce Ferdinand to you, who I'm sure most of you know. But we'd just like to start the conversation kind of picking up where Ferdinand and I left off before we brought you into the room. And we were talking about actually what bel canto means and how it's very different. It's a specific vocal tradition, and its roots are based in a very concrete way of singing. So this might seem obvious to you, but I think we just are going to say it because it's going to be posted for other people to view. So this might be some information just to keep in your mind as we're discussing specific techniques as well. So Ferdinand, I'd love you to talk a little bit about what we were just discussing earlier.
Good evening, everybody. I hope everybody's very well. It's very hot here. I'm here in Italy, where we're also going to do our masterclass. I'm not far away from here. Yes, the cosiddetto bel canto italiano. What does it mean? Well, everybody knows, or everybody talks about the bel canto, and everybody says, yes, I'm going to learn the bel canto technique, but what is it, at least? So first of all, it is a sort of tradition. It's because the roots of bel canto is in Italy, of course, in the Italian opera tradition, and we had especially with the castrati, we had, let's say, some sort of making professional the schools of bel canto, making professional the school of singing, because first we had the singers in the churches, in the conservatory of the churches, but when the opera was born in 1600, so even we need some new education of singing. So bel canto really was born there, and the peak of the bel canto was with the castrati in the 17th century, 18th century, 17th century. And from there on, also the composers of, let's say, Donizetti, Bellini, Verdi, until Strauss, they wanted that their singers are able to sing with the bel canto technique. So what does it mean, bel canto technique? Well, it means at least that your voice has the capacity, yes, is it right to say this? Capacity to do everything what the composer wants to have. And this is not very easy sometimes. So if you have to make some fioratura, some coloratura, or some intervals about 2 octaves, so it's not very easy. And it's also, you know, there's the composer, there's the singer, and the singer can do this. So the composer wants to have this. Okay, so as a singer, I try to do this, and the composer, wow, it's getting like this. So it's in Germany would say there's a spirale. It's always going like this, and to a certain point, of course, because there are the physical borders of singing, the physical borders of the voice. But it was really born with the castrats, because they had the possibility to do everything, because they had a kid's voice with a body of a grown up. And then this is the one thing. The other thing is that we have the instruments, which are always getting better and better and better. So the pianoforte, the violins, everything is getting better. So we have also the competition in between instruments and voice. And we, with the bel canto, we have to learn some basic tools. And this is, of course, the breath, because with the breath, everything starts. You have to create a sort of pressure where you have to handle with a production of the sound. This is very important. You have to be very relaxed in the larynx to do all the fioratura. So fioratura is very important. The trillo, the triller, was the basic thing for the bel canto singers. Then even the messa di voce, where you have to grow up, to grow, yeah, can you say this? To grow the dynamic and to just to
retract
make the crescendo. And the portamento, where you have, can you go from one note to the other note. And of course, what was it? Trillo, fioratura, messa di voce, and
portamento.
Yes, very important, the balance between the registers. But what are the registers? The registers is not just a thing of
a thing of our imaginations, would you say?
No. Maybe my students can help me, because I'm talking about that. Resonance, or the resonance. It's not a question of resonance, because the resonance is the consequence of how I can use the register. It's just how much muscles, how much mass of the muscles for the chords I use, and how less muscles and mass of the chords I use. So the balance is very, very important, especially in the passaggi. How to mix. You are talking always about the mixed voice, and I have to mix the voices and the registers, but at least it's nothing else. Just you have to use the mass of the muscle. So this is, let's say, this is the very important and the basic of bel canto singing. And what is the result? The result is that you're singing with your own voice, and not with the voice what your teacher wants to have, or what you in your mind want to have. Like, yes, I want to sing like Fritz Wunderlich, or I want to sing like Corelli. Oh! And no, bel canto is the technique. How can I use my proper voice? How is my timbre? How can I use my timbre? And this is very important, because I have the impression that, especially in these times, everybody wants to try to find a product of something. And is not enough self-confident to educate the own voice, their own possibilities. And I swear, if you're going to start to sing in the proper way, you really can sing more or less everything. And this is the goal, to sing everything, from the Baroque to the we are not talking about the style now, about this parameters. We're talking really about the voice, the capacity of the voice to sing Baroque, Fioratura, Strauss, Wagner, Mozart, everything. And this is really a challenge, I have to say. And it's so worth it to go this way. Yeah. This is my opinion about bel canto.
Now, where we kind of want to pick up from that, I think, is how that applies to each individual singer, because oftentimes, like, we know these principles. I think, we've read them in a textbook and we've come across them in practical experience. But, I would love to get you all's take on this as well, because let's say a skill like the trill, okay, for example, because it's a very concrete skill, right? Right? You can do it, or like you don't, right? Now, what happens a lot of times is, so we could task off, okay, I can do this skill, I can do the portamento, I can, do this, this, and this. And yet there still might be something that's not quite clicking, right? So what I look at especially is there a sense of ease in the instrument and in the muscles when accomplishing these skills? Now, this journey isn't always linear because, as Ferdinand and I both know, back in the days of bel canto being formed, teachers would look very closely, and in fact, there are whole chapters written on students coming to, I'm sorry, I'm admitting people as I'm speaking, students coming into to a master teacher and saying, okay, I would like to study. And the teacher looks for all of these qualities like, okay, is this a basic, like in these type of voices, it's very difficult, so maybe we don't take them. And it, you know, the world of singing, especially teaching singing, was very different back then. So I think where we are today with bel canto is a different scenario because there are a lot of people that maybe just want to learn to sing really well. Whether or not that's attached to career aspirations, sometimes it is, a lot of times it is, a lot of times it's not. So where does the bel canto technique, when you're coming into your studies with either some bad habits from either previous study or the native voice is not flexible, is not responsive to certain things. And so all of this stuff looks great on paper. Okay, great. I learned my trill. I learned Fioratura. And I don't know about you, Ferdinand, but a lot of people that I work with have had years of voice training and try and maybe even successfully were able to sing certain repertoire for a few years. And then they can't anymore. It goes away. Something isn't working anymore. So then you have to look like, were things in balance to begin with? And so this question that you brought up about finding your voice, finding your balance, that seems ephemeral, but it's not. It's actually very concrete, but it can seem a little tricky, especially because we're dealing with ourselves as human beings, as artists. We have our own expectations. We have other people's expectations. There's so much that goes into what we might understand as our true sound. And that is hard to get to. So I think today we'd love to break this down a little bit about what that means, accessing your true sound, and how it may not look for some, I'm not going to say for all, but that may not be a linear journey in the course of learning a piece of information. Often it's a course of consistent, correct muscular action that increases in flexibility and strength over time. So when you're doing the right thing today, it may not even sound like the right thing quite yet because you haven't achieved the full dynamic variation of your flexibility and strength. But that same thing done every day, consistently, that builds into the thing that you're looking for. So this can be very confusing for singers, and I'm not even going to say beginning singers. This is just confusing for singers, period, because I think, like Ferdinand said, there's a pressure to deliver the product. And I think even more in professional singers, because you're out there on the stages and you need to get it done. Someone's got a contract for you to sing this. Okay, I'll make it work. And you do that enough times and you hit a wall. So I'd love to get off my soapbox for a second and just ask if there's any kind of resonating questions that you have based on what Ferdinand and I have talked about so far, and then we can maybe pick up and go from that. I'm going to check the Facebook group.
I just want to say one thing. I'm very happy that I have two of my students here. It's Gulnara Norkina and Val Michelcic. They're studying with me in Klagenfurt at the university. And we know each other about 2 years when I took over the class. And maybe somebody wants to ask them about their experience with the bel canto and with that what I'm going to do there, because what you said, Julia, is, and everybody really everybody has the experience. You try to do something and you're going into the wrong direction. Absolutely. Sometimes just for a step, sometimes for a way, sometimes for a period, sometimes for days, sometimes for years. And to getting back to the roots of what means a good singing is very hard. So Nara and Val, we did this journey together, and I think we were very successful in that way, because we tried to get back to the roots of the physical singing. So if you don't know the technique, you can't sound, spielen, suonare, piano concert. It's not possible, but it's very obvious for people from the instruments. It's very obvious. If you don't study, if you don't do the journey, if you don't do this, Sevchik, whatever, and if you don't learn the technique, you can't just play. For the singers is another thing. People often think, oh, the voice is coming from God. It's a clock, and there is it. And yeah, we have some instinctive reactions of our body. We have it's a part of our body. So it's some people are very, very fortunate with that, but it's not the normal way. And even I have to say, I really had to study and to learn singing. And when I started, I wasn't able to sing over the G, so it's nothing for a tenor. And so
I also, by the way,
I just want to make sure that for the people here in this room, that we have really two students they can talk about the experience with my work.
Yes, I would love it. Who wants to volunteer to come on and speak first? Val or Nada? Let's raise a hand.
Somebody from the participants, they have some questions for Nada, because they are very neutral, of course. Because we say we are the teachers, so we know how to master class, and you know how the teachers are. They always say, "Yeah, to me, you will learn singing." But there, you now have the possibility to ask somebody, and I don't want to cheat them after this Zoom meeting if they're telling the truth and they are not happy.
Yeah, so if you have any questions, you don't feel pressured right at this moment. You can write them in the chat and we will read them and get that going. But I do want to say something too about this, because I think I know how you work, and I know how I work, and we're both, I've got a couple of my singers here in the room too. And I think what both of us really are sort of aiming at is that we are not trying to be the God telling you how it is all the time, because a lot of times in the first moment, it may not be completely obvious. And so you have to do a bit of investigation. And there is any number of solutions for the same auditory problem that one might hear. There could be several different things going on that can contribute to that same exact sound effect. So it's very important that there's not just one fix for wobbly vibrato. There's not just one fix for airy phonation or for inability to access the top. You have to look very closely. And if the typical things don't work, that's not the singer's fault. You have to look closer. And sometimes that can be very fun. It requires a lot of bravery on the part of the singer and a lot of ingenuity. So that's something too, because I don't know if any of you have had this experience. There's one particular aspect of your singing that either does continue to frustrate you or has in the past really caused an issue, and it took a lot to work through. But these things are normal, and I think, just like I always give the example of like a ballerina, because you can start ballet class from day one and you are not able to do the splits. But the fact that you're not able to do the splits doesn't mean you're not going to be a great dancer. Oftentimes, because if you can't do the splits, that can often indicate that you have some strength in another area. Maybe you have more strength and solidity. So balancing out the areas that are perceived weaknesses are part of the process. And that is, not getting stuck with the thing that is so difficult, but yet the thing that is difficult needs to be worked on from this balance perspective and creating this. So I'm talking more about tonal quality right now and balance of registration, not so much about the particular skills, but the particular skills can reveal the balance of the instrument, the laryngeal freedom, the stability of appoggio. You know what? Actually, let's talk about appoggio for a second, because that seems to be a very misunderstood concept here. Ferdinand, I'd love you to jump on and maybe invite Nara or Val to come and talk about their understanding of appoggio. Nara's like, no, not yet, not yet.
No, I just have to think about that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I can explain it, because my English, I'm a little bit afraid to speak English. It's not so very well.
Your English sounds better than mine, so come right on.
Well, as a soprano, I can say how I understand the appoggio: breathe, pray, and try.
Well, I have to say, Nara, she's very special. So when we started one and a half year ago, during the first lockdown, I took over the class in Klagenfurt.
Yeah.
And she told me what she sang mezzo soprano, then she sang some sort of soprano, and we worked a lot on this appoggio thing, and a lot about the opening of the throat, opening and the lowering of the larynx. And now she's able to sing a Königin der Nacht with a high F. She never sang before, and even we came up to the high G. So, and this means to get the balance between appoggio, which means a sort of tension and not power, not being
Fast.
but have this tension of the body, especially of the muscles of the stomach, and to manage the flow of the breath and the lowering of the larynx. So you have in one moment she just went away. Ciao. High F, high G. And nobody knows how she did it. Even she didn't know how to do it.
No, I don't know how I do it now. So
now
it was
the feeling, and you have this parameter, very important, appoggio, breath, not to push the air, and a sort of you have to hold the air, and this is very incredible from the traditional big canto singers. This thing with the fire, with the candela. In front of your
candle.
Your mouth, the candle. If the candle doesn't move, so you have the right appoggio, and that's true. It's true.
Yep. And notice how that relates. Not only to notice how appoggio relates to phonation. This is very interesting to me, because some singers will come and they will say, "Well, I definitely have my appoggio figured out, but the phonation is either breathy or pressed, or something's out of whack."
Yes.
So from that perspective, the appoggio cannot be correct, because the valve is not correct. And that valve creates the resistance within the lung cavity to create the correct amount of appoggio, which then you manage with outer musculature in your abdomen and in your rib cage. But the interplay of the phonation and the appoggio are inseparable. And then we could say that the interplay of the phonation with the correct resonance is also inseparable, because if the larynx is not seated at the correct height or depth, let's say depth, then you cannot have the correct appoggio, because you're holding up with extrinsic musculature to keep that, and then you're trying to phonate in that position. So there's muscular tension being built, and you are maybe having correct muscular action in your, abdomen region, your transverse abdominis. You can have your rib cage in the right position, but you're still not going to feel that sense of being hooked up, because maybe the larynx isn't quite sitting where it should. So all of these things, even though we're talking about them in isolation, they are completely connected. And it's virtually impossible to separate them, even though it can seem like we separate them conceptually on the outside when we're working in a moment. We have a question.
We have a question in the chat.
Yes.
How does the bel canto technique approach the concept of lowering the larynx? Is it a natural consequence of solving other technical issues or a conscious action? This is very interesting because the bel canto started not with the lowering of the larynx. So, and the lowering of the larynx is a technical thing of the 19th century, because it means lowering the larynx. You got more space in the throat, which makes the dynamics much more louder, because you have now the huge houses, you have the huge orchestra, so you need more dynamic. You need more yeah, you have to make bigger
to more power. Yeah,
to more power, and this you can solve with to lower the larynx. But, and this is the great but, it doesn't mean to push down the larynx.
Yes.
But a lot of singers do now. It's a thing inside, and yes, it's very conscious. If you sing like singers did in the 17th century, it's very conscious, and it's now you can use it as a tool. Yeah.
And keep in mind too, like there is, when we talk about lowering the larynx, this is a little bit tricky, but I think it'll explain it. So here's your larynx, okay? The way that you don't want to lower your larynx is like this. But the idea of real like freedom is more that the larynx is able to tilt, okay? So that's always the action that I always look for in my singers, is that they're able to tilt the larynx and get that balance. And that can sometimes be perceived as a lowering, but it's not the kind of lowering that, you know, we were just talking about where we're pushing down. But also that it depends where the singer is at, because if the singer is coming in with a permanently strapped up larynx, anything that we do to relax it is going to feel maybe like lowering or pushing down in the beginning, because there's just so many of these muscles that are tight. Conversely, a singer who has spent years depressing their larynx with the back of their tongue and pushing down, when they start to come into balance, they'll be like, I'm singing with a high larynx, because there's a different sense of their muscles and a different sense of the resonance that they're hearing now. But I would say in general, a good healthy way, besides these certain moments that maybe we're talking about where you would want to consciously employ a little bit more like weight and space into the voice, when I'm talking about lowering the larynx, I'm really talking about being able to maintain the laryngeal tilt while achieving correct phonation throughout all the registers of the voice. So it's kind of like if you've played Sudoku, okay, and you can infer based on who knows Sudoku, just so that I'm not talking like, okay, yes, okay, kind of, it's like a number game. It goes from 1 to 9, and you have like a series of squares, and it's 1 to 9, 1 to 9, 1 to 9, 1 to 9. Everything has to be 1 to 9, so no numbers can be duplicated in those sections. So why I say this is because when you're putting together the voice, if one part isn't working, even though it might sound really good in a certain part of the range, or maybe in, you know, a bigger part of the range, but yet another part of the range isn't working, you know that that's not the answer, at least not today. So you have to keep like rearranging your Sudoku numbers in order to achieve that. And I think that is the same with the lowering of the larynx, because what can be done at age 25 is not the same that can be done at age 55. Just physiologically speaking. And so what I do like, especially about, I would say 19th century vocal technique, is that there was a little bit of a understood graduation in terms of singers and the roles that they sang. So you would start with these sets of roles, and then as the voice grew or expanded, you would start adding more roles to your repertoire. And that was typically the way that it was done. So I think that with the question of the larynx, it really is about finding that position that you can achieve your full range with ease, freedom, and doing all of the skills that are required in bel canto technique. And for each person, that's going to be slightly different. So again, it's about that tone quality. If you want to sound like Corelli and you're not going to sound like Corelli, then that's not going to happen. But you will sound like you, and it will be great when things are in balance.
Yeah, yes, but with the technique of Corelli, this is the most
Yes.
important, because Corelli was a very good singer.
Exactly.
Not at the end of the career, but he really was a very good singer, and he didn't push down the larynx when he was a young singer, especially. Even Del Monaco didn't do this, or other famous singers like Di Stefano, for example. The young Stefano was a fantastic singer. So that what you said is, if you have the larynx here, and this is the jaw, yeah, and the tongue here, you have to have this way of lowering the larynx, and not this way, not make it tight. This is the problem, and people often misunderstand this. This is the difference between and yeah. So you see this very often, and then you have to use force, you have to use power, you have to push the air through it. The chords won't close anymore, and then the male function, the wrong function, goes at the end of the career. Within 5 years, you are dead, or maybe let's say 10 years.
And I would like to ask Nada about your experience, because this is really interesting, and I'm curious about your sensations in your transition from being a mezzo to singing these high pitches that now you sing. Is there a sensation in your auditory ear or your physical body, or if you can remember when you first found these notes, were you surprised that it felt like it was coming from a different position of the mechanism?
Well, I can remember the time when I was like a mezzo and an alto. I mean, with my older teacher, I sang Dalila with 10 to 3 years, which is crazy because that's not normal. And I didn't feel really well. Actually, he destroyed my voice. My voice was completely broken. Then, yeah, I came to another teacher before Ferdinand, and she told me, well, I don't know where you will go, but we have to do an exam and we have to find your voice. And then I came to the soprano stuff, and that was it was more natural for me. And when Ferdinand came, this was a completely new world for me. Because I started to think about my breath, to think about the appoggio, and to hear what is good for my body. And I have to say, when I sing the high notes, I do not think about the height. I just try to relax, to not fix the muscles, but
create a sort of tension.
Yeah, the tension, the stütze, and I just try to relax. And when I have, when I'm on the right pitch, on the right point, I feel my body, every single muscle. And when I feel my body, I know that I'm singing right. And in my throat, in my larynx, I don't feel any tension, because you cannot sing these high notes when you sing it here.
No.
Because your voice will break.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
And this is the very strange thing for us teachers, because Nada, she has a very clear sensation about what she's feeling. But for the same product, let's say, another singer is feeling something absolutely different.
Yes.
And now you have to know what is the physical thing of what happens in their body, what happens with the voice, what happens with the breath, with the blah, blah, blah. And but what is their feeling? And then you have to understand, okay, this is their feeling, and now we have to go on with that feeling. But the other singer, which is also, let's say, a high coloratura soprano, has a complete other feeling, other sensation. And this is the problem, because a lot of teachers, they just want to make a product. They just want to say, you have to do this, and you have to feel that. But it's not the way. So you have to reflect, what are they feeling, and some in a way to go this way with this sort of impression. It's not a feeling of passion, it's an impression of the body. What happens in my body? This is the very important thing, because at the end, singing is a physical thing. Yeah, it's like a sport. You can train it, but if you run backwards, you can't do a marathon. That's
yes.
And I also think, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Nara.
What I wanted to say, in comparison with other musicians like violinists or pianists, the thing is, you can play the piano for 8-9 hours, and not the problem, and the gift and the difficulty of our instrument is that we are our instrument. Our body is our instrument, and you don't feel the same every day, you know. You feel every day is completely different, and you have to you have to start from the beginning. But when you know the technical clues and you know what to do, you can fix it and it will go somehow.
Yeah.
But you have to trust yourself, I think, and you have to trust your body and your voice that you can make it. And don't hear the other too many singers or something. This is really important for me, because when I start to hear what is my colleague singing and what is this singer singing and I cannot sing it, I go crazy. And I have to learn it just to relax. And I think, yeah, this is my key.
Yeah, but not to be passive, and this is very important. Not
Yeah.
to be passive. Singing is a very active thing, but sometimes you just mix it up with power. And
am I passive?
Yeah. So, well,
yeah.
Sorry,
that was what I wanted to mention.
We have a question here.
Okay, we've got another, hold on, we've got another comment from Steve. Okay, having listened to lesson tapes of my coach studying with Enrico Pola and his stories of sitting in on lessons, all I heard listening was Pola yelling, Appoggio, vowel, non spingere, over and over. He said he never heard a mention of this lowering larynx or raising the palate. He said students would come from the States with these things, and Pola would just comment how they are messing with the vowel by doing these things, and then singing goes out the window. What do you think of the teachers from that area, Bologna and Modena, Pola and Ettore Campogalliani? Do you feel this is the same school or different from the bel canto you learned? Okay, that's interesting. Ferdinand, I'll let you take that.
Well, I don't know these guys.
Me neither.
So it's not very good to say this is a Bologna school or something like this. Bologna school is Broschi, for example, the guy with the castrato from the very famous Bologna school. I have to say, I took my experiences, of course, from the theoretical tractati of the Italian singers like Tosi, or like the very famous Garcia of Dupré.
Yeah.
From this time, and you see very, very easily from the exercises they gave into their books what they want to have, and it's always the same. It's trillo, messa di voce, fioratura, portamento, and
they taught Pavarotti, Freni, Bergonzi. It's interesting. I didn't know that.
It's interesting because sometimes Pavarotti is, of course, the fantastic singer. There's no way. I love him very much, but it was also easy if I heard some master classes on YouTube. He really couldn't explain what he did in a way. So Pavarotti couldn't even read the notes. So he's a, let's say, a sort of singer, very instinctive singer, very intelligent, as instinct intelligence thing. But I even know people which learned with Pavarotti, and they said they couldn't get anything from him because he couldn't explain what happens. So we have to think about this. Yes, let's just watch a little bit what he said, because I'm not sure.
Here, let me send that to you.
Mention of this larynx. Okay, Pavarotti sang with a lower larynx. This is a lowering larynx. It's not what I said, pushing down the larynx with power. It's just let it go down, like yawning. Oh, and Pavarotti sang like this. So it's not. The problem is with all the schools, we don't have the right terms. There's no definition about what means appoggio. We have, I think, about 10 definitions about everybody says what is appoggio. So it's not very easy to, if somebody says he never heard about the lowering the larynx, but he sings with a lowered larynx. So what can I say?
Exactly. And actually, I do want to say something about this, because I think like we could discuss, we would probably need to do a little bit of research on exactly what was being taught by some of the teachers' names that you're giving here. But I think that that's less important than what we're here to really talk about, the after effects of achieving the bel canto principles in singing. I would say from the first part of this is very interesting that they never told the singers soft palate or lowering the larynx. Now, what would be interesting to know is who was coming in for these coachings and at what point they were in the development. For one person, the understanding of raise the soft palate can be disastrous, because how they think they're raising the soft palate is the wrong muscles. For another person, that same cue, raise the soft palate, could fix everything. So when we're talking about language, we're dealing with human beings and their own particular understanding of what those cues are. That doesn't mean that that's what's happening or that's what's not happening. So for example, if the teacher Paula was talking about the vowel and appoggio, then that can achieve, and I do have to say, that often can achieve, depending on the person receiving it, the correct balance of the larynx and the soft palate lift. But sometimes it can't. And in those cases, that's what we're talking about, so that singers don't get frustrated and they're being told the same thing over and over again. They can't seem to get over that hurdle. So I think that any one of these cues could be absolutely helpful. But if it's not, then that's when you have to go further. At least that's my take on this. What do you think, Ferdinand?
Yes, I just want to. I think it was the question of Steve, wasn't it?
There was a couple of questions. Yeah, Steve.
About the lowering of the larynx. How can I share my screen? Just want to
go down to share screen.
Bildschirm freigeben there. Okay. So can you see this this picture here? This is what it means, lowering the larynx. So this is the normal situation if you talk, and even people from the I think 16th, 17th century sang like this. So a very relaxed way with the larynx in a normal position. And you see, you have a relatively small space, and there is the space where the primer sound is created. Okay. Then you have in the 19th century, you have this lowering the larynx, and you see has nothing to do with just doing like this with the jaw. It's just with these muscles here, you can lower the larynx And you see, you have a space already of the double space where we create this the primer sound, and this means that you have more acoustical components, like the first formant, the second formant, and the third formant, yeah, up to 7 formants. You can all create in this room, and this is so very important. So Pavarotti, for sure, sang with this lowered larynx. There's no other way. Otherwise, he couldn't sing Aida, couldn't have sang Trovatore or something like this. So it's nothing to do with maybe Steve means, or with maybe the teachers Paula means. I don't know what they mean with lowering the larynx, because it's a very natural feeling. This is very natural. Yawning is very natural. And that's it's not a mystery. It's not a secret. Of course, lowering the larynx like you just fix the larynx, and you can't create the space, because even this space is going to be very narrow with the tongue here, because the tongue is going behind. So maybe I could is it the right answer for you, or?
We'll see what Steve writes in to see if that was a good answer. And Steve, feel free to jump on, and you can chat with us too, because we're interested. Yeah, this is I love this visual, because this does show, and if you do achieve this like yawn position that we were just talking about, the larynx actually has a lot more flexibility. So that is, it can achieve the registrational balance at higher pitches much easier. Oh, thanks. Okay, there we go. Let's see what is written in the chat. Yeah, I'm just wondering the differences in parts of Italy and the teachings. I don't know that the different parts of Italy and the teachings. I'm not as familiar with that. Just talking, a relaxed inhale lowers the larynx. Tracheal pull, I think it is called, I'm guessing. Yes, for sure. But I would say also this depends on the person, because for one person, a yawn might be with a retracted push down tongue. I actually see a lot of these cases. So it's important that things are looked at a little bit, especially if it's not working. So if the yawn, and I have seen cases where the yawn position tends to not work. And then you have to look closer. Okay, is the singer retracting their tongue and pushing down on the yawn? Oftentimes, yes. And some, as simple as that yawn cue fixes the issue. Now, maintaining that with the Appoggio, that's the tricky part, and that's the part that requires some training. Now, I
said that just talking a relaxed inhale lowers the larynx, right? The classical Italian school is talking about inhalare è la stessa cosa come exhalare. This is inhalare, and you're just lowering the larynx. So if somebody is telling you that you have to take the breath like, the larynx is just going up. So this is very relaxed, very easy, and this is the same tension, the same opening that you use for singing. I'm singing in a very relaxed way with a lowered larynx. And now I'm going to sing with a not lowered larynx. And you see at once how the sound is changing from a, let's say, classical sound to a more romantic, natural sound. which you need for Verdi, which you need for Wagner, because you have to open more, you have to lower it, but it's not that I'm pushing down the larynx.
Yeah.
So maybe you got the difference.
Yes. But I would say it's good. Yeah, Janet said the higher larynx sound is great for musical theater. Yes, this is true. Steve said, so I heard the vowel on the first and on the second. Okay.
I think it's an A, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Of course, Steve. This is the question of the balance of the vowels. If you're going to into the higher register, you have to open the mouth. You have to open because you have to stretch the chords. So I can't, in the lower register, I can't sing an E. E without problems. If I'm going to the higher register, I can't do this. You see that the language is going up. You have to open it. So the E in the lower register can't be the E in the higher register. And this is a very natural thing from the technique. But the vowels of the speech are not in the same position like singing.
Right. Right.
I think this is clear, isn't it?
It is clear. Now, the tricky part is too, depending on where you're coming from, what language your first language is, you may have a different muscular habit for pronouncing certain vowels, or consonants even, but let's just talk about vowels right now. Because that needs to be looked at in terms of how the vowel is functioning. And sometimes it's not as simple as saying to somebody, sing E, or sing ah, because that person's conception of that vowel is wrong. And it's not helping them achieve the balance of resonance that you would need. Okay, we have more comments here. I think this is why Paula would yell vowel and not lower this or raise that. The vowel determines the register.
Just wait one moment.
Yes.
I don't
Perhaps.
know exactly what he means.
The vowel determines the register. So I think he's talking about vowel modification. I think that's what Steve is talking about, is the vowel, like depending on an E vowel, you know, if you're up in the upper passaggio for a soprano, you're going to need to modify that more to I, and then as it gets higher, it goes more to A. So is that what you're saying, Steve? I'm not sure. But so a person's perception of where the vowel is very important. And sometimes that has to be broken down. This is the area where I come at it, is looking at all of the pieces, the tongue, the jaw, the face. What is happening to restrict that movement that should be happening? And in general, we're all shaped a little bit differently, but in general, there are healthy shapes, there are healthy positions for the tongue and the jaw and the face, and less helpful ones. And with each person, it's going to look slightly different because everybody has a different, size of their jaw, size of their tongue, different everything, right? But in general, there are things that are consistent. So if the person cannot do that, for example, let's say we have an O vowel and the person constantly has this tendency to pull down and pull down every time they get to a certain vowel. So that may need to be worked on in a little bit more of a mechanistic way to help the person understand what is happening. So these are all the things that saying just vowel alone may not fix the problem. Yes, or just to sing two different vowels on the same note and notice the acoustics register change. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great way. That's a great way. Yes, because it does change depending on if you sing E and A in the same register, you will notice very different qualities just from those vowel changes.
Yes, because we're always talking also about the balance of the vowels. So the vowels, of course, are part of the language. But in a let's say in the higher register, you can't express the language, the speech, the talking, like if you're talking. It's not the same thing, because talking comes not from singing. Talking comes from talking. The language comes from talking and not from singing. So you have, let's say, some physical parameters. Yeah, is it right to say this?
Yeah, parameters. Yeah,
and which you can't avoid. That you're not in the higher register. You can't sing an E. It's just not possible. So you have to find the balance between the vowel in the higher register, like a A, which is, let's say, much easier because you have the opening, and you have just to bring it close to the E. But you never can sing an E. You're just singing if you sing a Do, for example, it's not an E. It's an E. Otherwise, it's not possible. Or you sing like a lot of German singers, which sing lead, but so you lose the balance of the register, and you lose the nice sound of your voice, because we want to have all the formants, the lower formant. We want to have all the, let's say, all the acoustic components of the beautiful sound in the bel canto. And that what makes your timbre.
Yes.
It's not a nice timbre. It's not my voice. That's my voice. So did I answer the question, or is it not very clear what I said?
I think it's clear to me. Is it clear to all of you what we mean? Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not a native English speaker.
You do very well. It's great.
Just a Bavarian ordinary tenor teaching in Austria.
Questions? Any last questions
Toronto.
from you all?
Wow.
Oh, Toronto. Hello. I'm a half Canadian, so on the western side though. So I have one. Carrie, can I invite you on? Hi, Carrie. Hello, how are you? And Carrie and I have worked together.
So, okay. All right. I do have a question. How would you define relaxing while singing? Because numerous times people have said, Carrie, you have so much tension, and I've gotten feedback saying there's so much tension, specifically neck tension. So how do you kind of release that when you sing?
Well, I would just say, like, first of all, that is very individual. It is extremely, like, it's about body posture, the individual's relationship with the muscles, any kind of muscular issues that might be going on. If it's only happening when singing, okay, and it's not happening posturally, then tends to be, it's not about looking to release the neck muscles. It's about looking to find the better balance of how the larynx, how the phonation, how the appoggio, like what we were talking about, all these elements fit together. Now, if it is a simple matter of my neck is always tense, and then when I go to sing, it's also tense, that's kind of a different problem, and that maybe can be dealt with body work and things. But I think you're talking about, Carrie, is when you go to sing, you get a lot of neck tension. Is that correct? Yes, that's what I figured. So in that case, I think the most important things to look at first are body posture, because this is something I always harp on my clients, and everybody knows who's in the room is my client. Okay, because today we're in the age of iPhones, right, and computers. Now, I want you to all look at me from my fantastic side view, which is, really awesome right now. Okay, now who thinks that this is pretty straight posture? Raise your hands. Is anybody? Not my students. Don't raise your hands. Anybody? Who? Yes? No? Okay. So I'm going to sing a note from here. We're just going to, and I'm not going to change anything between this posture and my next posture. Okay, if I do, well, I can tell you right now, even though I don't have bad posture, I'm not in my alignment. I can feel it. Okay, so now if I make this slight adjustment, now I'm able to have the appoggio that I need. So this is the first thing to look at, because oftentimes a singer can present with decent posture. It doesn't look out of place, completely out of place, but there can be a slight misalignment in the position of the sternum, in the release of the back of the neck. This is often a big one right here. So what we think of as normal, which is this, we may need a little bit more extension. Okay, and especially in our day and age when we're walking around, we're slumping, we're sitting, we're not exercising as much, and we're on our phones. So that's the first thing I look at. The second thing I look at is what is happening with the phonation. And the phonation can be affected by laryngeal position, can be affected by appoggio, can be affected by tongue, jaw, everything, right? There's a myriad of things that go into why the neck muscles then want to start grabbing to help. Oftentimes, there is a phonation element in that, but it doesn't always have to be solved by the phonation, because if there are lots of compensatory jaw and tongue kind of assisting, you have to clear that out of the way. Think of it like cleaning out a garden that's overgrown. First, you have to clean the top parts of the weeds, and then you can start to see what's actually going on underneath. So that's the way that I approach severe neck tension. It's not quite as simple, and I think for each person it can be very different. Ferdinand, I'd love you to talk about your feeling about that too.
Well, I think this is really an individual problem which you can't solve like this. Do you have some solutions? You have to figure out from where it comes. I have a student, and she's talking. So it's because she has always this tension here, even if she's talking like this, and it's a problem of yes, she says, because she's playing the violin. So she has always this situation of tension. So you have to figure out from where it comes. Is it a thing of the normal preposition, or has it to do with the singing? So somebody's like this, he's talking normal, blah blah blah, and when he's starting to sing, maybe then you have to make clear, what are you thinking? What do you want to create? Do you use these muscles to create a sort of space, or to have to put the power in here because you think that the voice you have to create here? So it's not very easy to understand and what causes these problems. Sometimes it's really a physical problem. I have always the problem that like this. Yes, because I'm not very good trained with my back, so I have always to think like this. But yeah, I can't give you a solution now, but you have to think, has it to do with the producing of the sound? Has it to do with talking? Has it to do with being normal? Has it to do with singing? This is the first step you have to figure out. Yeah. And then you have to, okay, I'm just have problems with the singing, so I have to find out what cause it is. Often it's the problem that you don't have the right appoggio.
Yes. And so, can I just say something? Can I interrupt, because I know Carrie a little bit? Okay, I would say something to look at is what Ferdinand is talking about, the appoggio, exactly. Because what happens is, maybe in vocalizing on vowels, everything's going well. And then you add consonants into the mix, like an aria, and then you feel the tension come in. And when you're vocalizing on the vowel, it's a lot more simple. But what can often happen is we pull off our appoggio when we're making these consonants because we don't have that legato line. So that can then cause our neck muscles to start grabbing and taking control because we're not consistently on our appoggio the whole time.
All right, that's really good. I'm taking some notes before I have to go off to lunch with my father. So,
Awesome.
Yeah. Righty.
Awesome. Well, glad we could answer that, or at least talk about it.
Sometimes as my students, they know this because I'm just getting on their nerves with this sort of exercise. But if you have the appoggio here and with the muscles here, and you just create some sort of pressure like this.
Yeah.
You see, it is very relaxed, it's very open here. And this is more or less the situation, how the space here has to be. Everything has to be relaxed, and the pressure is coming. Pressure of the air, compression of the air, and you just hold it here. Bah! And you see everything is open, everything is very relaxed. But the power comes from here. This is this sensation to what you can have, that you don't have any pressure, anything here, just here, and you have the power from here, the tension. Maybe it can help you.
We have Ivan has asked, any tips for merging chest and head voice so they sound uniform? The aperture of the mouth is one that used to give me problems, but I still feel my two registers are too far apart. Ivan, what voice type are you? Tenor. Take this out. Take this away, Ferdinand. Oh, and Steve asked, what if you have a tenor? We got lots of tenor questions here. What if you have a tenor that sings well, but sometimes gets a little too pressed in his phonation? Yeah. Well, let's start with Ivan, and then let's talk about Steve's question.
So, what are the registers? How are they created? If I read, you're talking about chest voice and you're talking about head voice, that means that you're thinking in components of resonance. So you think the voice is here, the head voice, and the chest voice is something here. Is it right? Do you have this feeling and you just want to get it closer together? But you have to know that that this isn't the physical way. The physical way of chest and head voice is just that you have the chords. These are the muscles, and these are the chords. And if you have the lower register, it's nothing to do with the resonance. It's just that you use the muscles. They are swinging. Okay. And now you have to learn that if you're going into the higher register, to use less mass of the muscles, and just the epithelial or the chords are swinging. This is the secret.
But that
my student tenor Val knows it very well. We always are like the sirens in the university, and it sounds like a dental clinic. Nothing else. So I think the first thing is not to think that I have to bring some resonances together. No, because it means you have to do something like this. So you have really to know, okay, it's something to do with this. You have to be focused on that.
Mhm. And also there is a sense of training the Appoggio if it's not able. I can speak for this, especially for female voices that are working into the whistle register. There can be a little bit of an issue because the singer can access the whistle register, but then cannot attach it onto the rest of the voice. And what has to happen is sometimes over time, you have to build up the Appoggio a little bit better to withstand just a little bit more of the balance of the mass versus the stretch of the chord as you're going up, so that it doesn't release all of a sudden. So if it feels like, I would say for anybody, for any voice type, if it feels like you all of a sudden break off into a register without being able to keep that consistency, that can often mean that you are not fully engaged with your Appoggio, but that can often feel frustrating because maybe you can do it up to a certain point, but then you can't quite do it. And so you give up and you might say, well, maybe it's not right then. So that's tricky. And actually we have, Kim can talk about that a little bit, but I think we have some more questions. So Kim, if you don't mind hanging on just 1 second, we've got a lot of questions here. Steve asks, what if you have a tenor that sings well, but sometimes gets a little too pressed in his phonation?
It depends where in the phonation, in the general or in a certain register.
Yeah, in general, Steve, or in a certain register?
Well, I think Steve maybe means that in the higher register, sometimes you hear a tenor which is really singing very good and very nice, and now he's coming over the secondo passaggio and it's something like, it's just even this is a question of how using the muscles and the mass of the muscles, if it's swinging or not swinging.
Yeah, he said yes. Yeah.
So you have to learn as a tenor not to take the mass into the higher register. This is it's not a secret.
Right.
Yeah. You have, and this is the sort of relaxed feeling you have to have as a tenor, especially if you're going up to the higher notes. You have to have more tension in the body, more appoggio, let's say, but less feeling that you use your voice. So if I sing a high note, I have the feeling that my voice doesn't exist. If I sing, I have the feeling, wow, this is really strong because I use the whole muscle, the whole mass of the muscles.
Right.
And this is the problem, especially for tenors, because the baritone just goes up to the G. They can always go with a whole mass of the muscles, but the tenors can't, and this is the deadline.
Right. And I would say also, dramatic sopranos also have this challenge. This is a big challenge, especially when they want to overweight the upper passaggio to feel that strength, and then it's not able to turn over to the top correctly. So I think what you're describing is a problem for all voice types, but sometimes it's more apparent, especially for the tenor.
But especially for the tenor, because we have a very paradox feeling. If you're getting higher and higher, you don't feel your voice. You feel so you need more tension but less air, and you don't feel your voice. And this is really a very, very strange feeling.
It's psychological too. Like, you have to learn the psychology of that and be okay with it. It's very scary. It's almost like somebody's giving you directions and you are blindfolded and you're going around a city you've never been in before. It's tricky. Now, Grayson writes, we have a couple things from Grayson. We kind of answered this about bel canto places a lot of emphasis on a uniform register. How is this achieved? And Grayson also says, I'm a baritone in high school. Is it dangerous to seek a more mature sound? How can I try to work toward a more full sound? You know, it depends, first of all, Grayson, is how long it's been since your voice has changed. You know, some people's voices have changed quite early and others maybe a little bit later. So it depends on, are you still you know, do you feel that you fully transitioned? But even at 17, I would say in general, it is okay that you don't quite sound like you will when you're 27 or 37. And you shouldn't want to achieve that right away. Most likely, if you do try to achieve that, now, not in all cases, I'm going to be really honest with you. I know a fantastic, when he was 20 years old, it's a fantastic bass friend of mine. And everyone at this age were like, this can't be possible. Like, no, he's singing incorrectly. Well, no, he's not singing incorrectly. And today he's in his 30s and singing all over. So I will say that there are some cases that the voice does mature really quickly, but I think it is totally normal for somebody at 17 to not sound quite so mature as you might want. You listen to the recordings and you want to sound like that. I do think it is dangerous to seek a more mature sound if that's not what the physical muscles want to do in achieving this technique that we're talking about. Ferdinand, do you want to jump in on that?
Well, the thing is, you mustn't use too much air and pressure to get a sound, because the voice cords just need what they need, not more and not less. Mm-hmm. And to have a more mature sound, of course, if you do some marathon, you have to train for that 3-5 years. So it's the same thing. If you want to be a bodybuilder, it needs you, I don't know, 5 years. Mm-hmm. So just you have to have the feeling just to do as much as possible and not less as possible, something like this. And then the voice will grow and grow and grow. Of course, there's some physical basics, like if you a baritone, you should use the first formant. It means that you don't sing like ah. This was the question we had before. So if you lower the larynx, you've got more a round sound, more sonore, like ah, more baritone maybe. Okay, so you can work on that without pushing, without pressing. Just don't go against your nature. You have to have this instinct not to go against your nature. This is
and you also have to know where you are on that scale. It's kind of like pain tolerance, right? We all have a different pain tolerance, and we all have a different tolerance of, let's say, vocal discomfort. And you have to know where you are on that scale. And I think the best way to start to develop that is with your teacher. Because if you are feeling quite okay, and the teacher is giving you feedback that the sound is very tense and, you know, this needs to happen, and you're like, well, but everything feels okay. That can be a good indicator to you that maybe you haven't quite fine-tuned your inner kinesthetic awareness to the point that it's so fine that you can distinguish between these little tensions, these micro tensions that you have to seek to uncover. So developing your own kinesthetic awareness is a very important step to do, especially when you're young. Let's see, do we have any?
Did we answer the question?
I think we did. And you know what, we'd have to start to wrap up right now. What I'd love to do, I know, Ferdinand, I think you were going to share your screen. I think, you know, today's discussion is we're kind of covering a lot of subjects here. But in this, what we're hoping you'll see is kind of how the discussion groups are going to work in our new vocal retreat format. And hopefully, you know, with more of you actually talking live instead of writing in the chat. But it's really, so our vocal discussion groups, some of you read about our retreat that's coming up in July in Italy. And we are planning on doing more of these. So if you can't join us this time, that's okay, because there will be upcoming ones as well. But something that we are adding to the masterclass format, which for the Americans in the group, I just want to reiterate what masterclass actually is by European standards. It's basically like a multi-day event where you are studying intensely with a teacher and also observing the lessons of other students. Now, what we are adding onto this is kind of an immersive experience where we are together for a week in a monastery in Lucca, and I think Ferdinand is going to pull up his screen. So you can go ahead and share that screen while I'm talking. And we are going to meet, in addition to our lessons and coachings that are happening during the day, we're going to be meeting and talking over meals about vocal technique after our lessons are over. So this is going to be a really immersive experience where we're living and breathing singing as a group together over a week. Here
so this
are
is our monastery.
Mhm.
I hope you can see. I will show it. This is very nice, really. And you see, if you don't have a car, you just can't leave from there.
Well, don't scare them now.
So we are, no, the thing is, we are very focused on working together. We will be together the whole day. We will discuss. We will, of course, make all the individual voice lessons and everything. But it's just it's just a place of energy. You see, it's very alone. So maybe Nara, she was there on this place. Maybe you can talk about your impressions about this place.
Yes, of course. Well, I have to say that this is the most magical place I've ever been on a masterclass. I adored the atmosphere. You know, you are there, you see the people every day for like the whole day, and like Ferdinand said, you cannot escape. There is no escape rooms, and I love such masterclasses because you are completely alone with your voice and with your teacher and with pianists and other musicians. And this is such an amazing place where you can get so much information and you can really let everything go and try new things out. You are not afraid that someone can hear me or judge you. And you just, I don't know, the working process is just amazing. You sing the whole day and you have the power. Of course, it's exhausting sometimes because you get so much information from everywhere. And at the end of the day, your hand just will be really, really huge.
And you get Italian food.
That's the best thing. Yes.
Important.
Yes, I just wanted to let it on the end, you know.
Italian food and wine from the monastery, which with and oil. The olive oil monastery. So this is really
the food is amazing. The food is just wow.
Yes, and
really good.
What we do want to say is the masterclass. I posted the link here for you all to go visit if you don't know about it. But this is all inclusive, so this includes full room and full board. So Ferdinand's joking that if you don't have a car, you can't leave, but you don't need to, and that's the intention. Is that even if you did have a car, you don't leave. And this also includes transportation from the local, I think it's the train station or the bus station, I'm not sure.
Train station.
The train station.
We will bring you to the monastery. In a way, we will manage this. We manage it all the time, so we also will manage this time. Yes, but I really have to say this is a fantastic place. It's incredible. You would just really have a focus on what happens, and as I said, it's not a secular monastery, so God is with us.
Especially on the high notes.
Especially on the high notes, exactly.
Well, and the high notes.
You know, I do think, not to get too woo-woo here, but it is important where you are, your surroundings, when you're learning and you're opening up yourself to be more vulnerable, learn new things. I do think that the people that you surround yourself with and the setting is really important to that. So in picking this setting, this was important to us.
And it's such a gift to have the possibility to work with such musicians and teachers and pianists. It's a really good gift. It's not work, it's like holidays, but with lots of music.
Oh no, it's work. It's work.
It's work.
Not holidays.
Ferdinand, I'm just used to work with you, so.
Well, I would love to
Yeah.
thank all of you for joining us on this meeting, and I'm going to be posting information. I hope you've enjoyed our discussion, and hopefully we'll see you all either at our masterclass in July or maybe at one of our upcoming ones if you can't quite make it this summer. So I will put that information here also on Facebook, because I know a lot of people are watching live on Facebook. So I will also post that link. But I thank you for joining us. Thank you very much to my co-host Ferdinand, and for your wonderful questions. Really, really great.
And I really want to say also, if it's not possible to come this July, maybe we just try to find a possibility in September or maybe next week, so next year. So just write us when you have time, so we can also maybe
find when there's a group that's really like with dates that line up, because we do need to notify the monastery about dates kind of in advance. So if you know these dates would really work, I'm free. You know, some of the professional singers may have a break during a time, so write us and we can maybe assemble a group together for those moments. Wonderful. Well, I'm going to thank you all. I'm going to stop the recording here. And